Hey,
Everyone,
welcome
back
to
another
season
of
Rally.
Caps.
We're
Very
excited
to
announce
that
we
have
a,
sponsor.
and
It
is
Musicbed,
our
favorite
place
to
license
music
for
videos.
online.
That was good. That was pretty good.
Stick
Around,
to
listen music
on
Musicbed
on
Rally Caps. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to Rally Caps, a podcast for the creative entrepreneur building a business for the long haul.
Today, we are joined by Rob Abasalo, owner of the Robuilt YouTube channel, currently based in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. Rob and his wife Ashley started their young married lives in Kansas City after longing for change and craving a hip metropolitan lifestyle with access to some of the best food imaginable. They made the leap and ventured to LA. Having saved up enough for a down payment on a house, they did the impossible and bought a home in California. To offset the Cali home expenses, they quickly started renting out the garden apartment of their house on Airbnb. And shortly after, Rob built a tiny home in their backyard with his own bare hands. Fast forward a few years, Rob is now building an Airbnb empire around the globe with a variety of properties ranging from tiny homes, cabins, tents, and yurts to tree houses, bomb shelters, submarines, and sheds. Ranging from Los Angeles to Joshua Tree, Wisconsin to Tennessee, and Russia to Jeffrey Epstein's island. In a matter of a few years, Rob took himself from a small salary paying job to now grossing over $1 million in 1 year, which is equivalent to roughly 90,000 Chipotle burritos, which might be a more preferred form of payment for him.
Is that all correct, Rob?
That is mostly correct. Wow, I was impressed. I liked most of the exaggerations, and the Chipotle math back of the napkin. That adds up, man.
Yeah, I made sure that math checked out because I knew you were going to do that in your head after I said it.
Yes, happy to be here. Sorry, is there more to your intro? I don't want to. I kind of liked it.
That was the longest one I've ever done.
I always forget I'm very new to podcasts, so the whole be polite, and then you sit there and you listen to the other people talk, and then you're like, my turn, yes, and then I'm always scared to interrupt. So now I'm just saying I apologize in advance, and then I'll get caught up listening to y'all, and then you're gonna look at me, and I'm gonna be like, oh, that's right, we're doing a podcast.
Man, well, okay, so I said a lot of things, but I feel like we're even leaving more out on all the things that you do. So are you able to fill in some of those gaps a little bit? I touched a bit on Kansas City to LA, but maybe just kind of filling in the gaps from there to where you are now.
Absolutely, man. So it was a dark, wintry night in 1989. Yeah, man. So I went to college at University of Texas, and I majored in creative advertising, and I started my career in Kansas City. I was in advertising, and at the time, it really felt like that was my dream job. It really was. I wanted to live the life of an ad man because I just thought it was such a cool thing to create commercials, and really I kind of think of it as creative revenge a little bit, because I had so many jingles that have stuck with me since I was a kid, and I was like, man, I'm gonna do that to someone else. I'm gonna make them remember my jingles. So I broke into advertising that way, but
that was a weird phrase.
It really wasn't. We'll just edit that out. Anyway, yeah. So moving forward, I started trying to always have little side hustles here and there. I started a woodworking business in Kansas City, and I would always document those different projects on Instagram and everything. And people really took to that type of stuff really, really well. And they always encouraged me, and they said, man, you got to start a channel, and you need your own HGTV show and this and that. And so, that was always a nice thing that I always heard. And so I wanted to start a YouTube channel for a while, but advertising, not paying the bills. So what we did was we made the very smart decision, being highly broke and in student debt. And we said, hey, why don't we move from this really affordable city, Kansas City, and buy a house that's 4 times the cost in a city that's significantly more expensive. I mean, that's probably going to work out. It did. And I'm really glad that we did. So I moved to LA. I got a really big raise in my career at that time. And so it really did actually help a little bit at the time. And we bought a house, and I had to make the decision if I was going to break my lease or pay $2,000 basically to break it, or if I was going to stick it out. And I told my wife, I was like, man, I heard about this thing. It's called Airbnb. You rent your house out to strangers. What's the worst that could happen? And she was like, oh boy, here's another one of your crazy ideas. And I was like, look, this one's crazy, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work. And she was like, all right. And so we bought this house. I ended up putting that apartment on Airbnb. That apartment ended up really turning things around for me financially in a way that I never expected, just in that it was somewhat of a catalyst to the rest of my financial success. And so as I started making a little bit of money, I was like, wow, what if I had 10 of these? And that was really the beginning of it all. And so I bought this house. I had a studio apartment under that house that was 300 square feet. Started Airbnb-ing that. That was paying 50 to 75% of my mortgage. And I was like, insane. Like, we got to do this again. I was like, what if we built a tiny house in my backyard? And Ash was like, but you don't know how to do that. And I was like, I know, but it's going to be fine. And I built this tiny house. I thought it was going to take me 2 weeks. Cost me $40,000 is what I thought. And what it actually ended up taking was 13 months, and it was $72,000. So a lot of hard lessons along the way.
A little different.
I'm going to do the thing now where I'm going to let y'all say, well, hey, let's unpack that a bit. But I'll shut up now. What's up? Did that answer your question a little bit?
That was great.
Did I fill in those gaps?
No, that was perfect. I mean, I was wondering with the 300 square foot apartment below, were you like in a neighborhood where that was like a good place to be in LA for Airbnb, or is it just kind of like a random spot? Because I know you talk about location a lot with your properties.
Totally, man. Yeah. So a couple of back-to-back home runs on both of those Airbnbs. Like the apartment was 15 minutes away from LAX, which is the airport in LA. And so very great location in that it's central to everything. The house that I bought was about 10 minutes away from that. And, I was like, yeah, it should be just as good. And yeah, it's in a neighborhood. It's not necessarily like, it's not like a walking type of, you don't pop out of the house and then go like walk somewhere. And then, in car though, it's a great location. We're, 20 minutes from downtown, 20 minutes from the airport, 20 minutes from like Venice. And so, 20 minutes, like no traffic, or during a pandemic, it's 20 minutes, but like in any other time, it's a little bit more. But yeah, relatively good location. And like I said, didn't expect it to do super well. Like it was really scary for us to buy. It was a $624,000 house. I imagine we'll probably get into some of these numbers in a bit. And our house in Kansas City was $159,000. So this house really was a lot more, and we could not afford it. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, like, we stepped into this knowing bad financial decision. Let's go with it, because that's what we do. And but I had this sneaking suspicion that studio apartment would make between $2,000 and $3,000 a month on Airbnb. And so I was like, let's roll the dice. I think this is going to work. And that's exactly what happened. So it really did help subsidize the mortgage, and that's really. I say this because I had no idea what it would become and how I would grow as an entrepreneur because of this, these decisions that I made. And yeah, I still have that house today and I miss it. Living here in Tennessee, it's, we miss home sometimes, but that house is very special to me.
That's awesome. Does owning so many Airbnb properties all over the place give you a better idea of where you might want to live long term? Like, is it cool having all these spots in different places with different, amenities or different kind of like benefits, like geographically or regionally? Like, is that like a cool way to like see the country also, like travel a little bit and like have a reason to like see more of the world? Yeah.
So yes and no. And it depends. So basically my dream when I was like doing all this was, hey, if I could have, 12 houses, specific goal, because I was like, that means my wife and I could go and visit one house a month and we could just travel around the country. And so that was always my goal for a really, really long time. And, that's theoretically what the purpose was, is like to travel and everything. I will say when it becomes a business, it's a lot harder to actually go and enjoy your places. Cause like, for example, I have a tiny house in Joshua Tree, California, about 2.5 hours from my LA house. And I was like, man, I'm going to build this, and it's like my tiny house, and we're going to escape here. It's going to be our like getaway. And we really haven't stayed that much at that tiny house. In fact, my friends and other YouTubers have stayed longer than I have at that tiny house because it's a churning machine. It's like automated. If I go stay there, I have to go turn off all my automations and coordinate with my cleaner, and it's a little bit tougher. And then now we have 2 kids, and we live in Tennessee, and we're in the newborn stage. Well, actually, we're just out of the newborn stage, which we'll get into probably later, but it's nice. It's a good thing to be out of it. It was really hard for us on the second child sleep-wise, but yeah, we have 2 kids now, so, and we're in a pandemic too, so very difficult to actually go and enjoy all the different Airbnbs that have accumulated and stuff. Yeah. But ideally in like a year, once like the dust settles on everything that's happened in the past like 18 months or so, I can take some time off and just like disconnect and actually go and enjoy my properties.
Yeah. Okay, before we get into more Airbnb stuff, is Vrbo a thing? Hold on, is this podcast sponsored by Vrbo? No,
definitely not.
Okay, fantastic. It can suck. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, it is. I would say Airbnb definitely has the market share. Vrbo is definitely more geared towards like getaway destinations and like bigger homes and nice cottages in the mountains, lake towns. But I would say Airbnb definitely overtakes the market share. There are some cities where it's a little bit more split. Here in the Smoky Mountains, I would say it's a little bit more evenly split than most other places. But typically I would say Airbnb is like, it's like 80% Airbnb, 20% VRBO. But there are some people that would, argue the opposite and say, oh man, most of my business comes in from VRBO. So I'm a Airbnb shill. They don't really pay me for it yet. Maybe one day. I'm hoping they do. But I'm a big fan. I like them, and they've treated me well. And that's my allegiance at the moment.
Did I come off as like a total noob by saying Vrbo instead of VRBO?
Oh, did I switch? Yeah. Actually, I think you're right. I think it is Vrbo. Okay. I say VRBO. Yeah. And then I was like, well, I'm just gonna go with what Eric said, and then I forgot. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know which one it is. But I guess while we're here, today's podcast is brought to you by Airbnb.
Use Rob's link in the description. You sign up to be a host.
Sign up with my host. I'll be your Airbnb ambassador, and I can help onboard you and blah, 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 blah. Now you can live anywhere you want for 1 week or less.
So Airbnb stock went public last winter. I heard Graham Stephan talk about this not too long ago, talking about how he's so invested in YouTube because he uses it so much for his business. Is that something you're interested in as well? Is that something like you want to go that route of investing in that way too because you believe in it so much, or
like investing in the actual Airbnb company, like in stock and stuff? I've got a very bittersweet relationship with stocks and investing at the moment. Like this is like
I know some of that.
It's like every time, man. Like so this is like the first time really in a long time where I've made like money to like invest and like do extra things and stuff. And so this year was a great year for me. And so I was like, all right, boom, like let's buy some stocks. I'm going to buy Airbnb. I'm going to buy like Atlassian. I'm going to buy some Bitcoin. Literally like as soon as I pumped all of those, it's just like everything went significantly south. It's all back on the rise now, thank goodness. But that's one stock that I probably will never sell. Yeah, I mean, I just think we're at the very beginning of this like short-term rental industry. Yeah. Like, I think that we're really at the beginning of something new when you start seeing like these Wall Street dudes and hedge fund peeps like starting to get into the game as like giant conglomerates, which is a little frustrating in and of itself. Yeah. But once that starts happening, you're like, okay, so it's happening now, right? So I think for me, I'm going to hold on to my stock. I'll probably always buy stock in Airbnb because I think it's here. It really did super well during the pandemic. Not for the first couple of months for some people, but then it rebounded and it was a cash cow, the actual company itself. And so I just think that it's seen the worst of its days, the worst possible way, and something that no one ever expected. So I just feel like if it could kind of get through that, then it's going to be here for a while.
So true.
Totally. It definitely proved its resilience and all of that. I feel like, I don't know, I'm very new to the world of Airbnb also, but you have how many properties currently on Airbnb? It's 11?
I have 14 at the moment.
You have 14
and that's,
at the moment.
A few. Yeah, a few of them are mine, and then a few of them are like co-owned with different partners and stuff.
I can't tell if we're underselling that or not, but that seems like incredible to me that you have that many properties and that you're managing that many things. Is that common amongst people that are really making a business out of Airbnb, or are you kind of an outlier in that?
No, you know what? I honestly don't. I feel like I have a pretty modest Airbnb portfolio. But I will say that I would say most hosts that are like doing the thing and they're like, yeah, let's go, probably are going to be in the 1 to 5 property range. So I definitely am like more advanced compared to like, most, I guess I would say the majority of Airbnb owners. But then there are people that are like so far ahead of me, like eons and eons. I don't know, wrong word, but they're very, very far ahead of me. And so, I think, for me, I'm really proud of it. I have 14 now. I hope that, my goal is like year to date, like 365 from days from today. I want to have 30 Airbnbs minimum. So I do plan on like doubling up. Wow. And that's going to happen through my tiny house village here in Tennessee and a few other investments that I'm working on right now.
Okay.
But at this moment, I think it's a really great place to be for where I am, where I've been financially. And I think that's probably, I like that. Like, I like that I'm here right now because I think I'm still at a point where I can help relate, like where I can be relatable to people on YouTube and like say, hey, I'm still like working through this. I'm still figuring out my business. I'm still scaling up. Here's what I've learned. I'm a normal guy. I promise I can help you do this too. And I think people are like, okay, cool. Whereas if I had started my channel when I had like 200 units, it's not that I wouldn't be relatable, but I think it's just tougher for people to feel like they can get there.
The relatability.
Totally, yeah. They're like, we're 200. I don't even know how to get one. Like, that would seem so impossible. And then they would probably just turn away from your videos in general because they're like, well, I can't do what he did, so I'm out.
Rob, I have a story for you. I don't know if I told this in depth to you the first time we chatted, but I was going out to the East Coast to go and film a wedding with him out to New York, and I like totally messed up and went to the wrong airport, so I ended up driving on the trip. It's stupid, but on the way home that's how I found your channel, because I was binging some of your stuff. But yeah, it's so interesting to see the relatability you have, because I feel the same way with starting my YouTube channel and us starting Rally Caps with just kind of not really knowing anything at the beginning, and that relatability factor seems to be something that people tend to trust you so much more. I kind of wanted to use that as a segue into like with YouTube in general. Do you feel like the start of starting Airbnb and doing that first garden apartment was the best decision you made for your business, or starting a YouTube channel was, or is it just apples and oranges?
Yeah, I think it's a little apples to oranges. Look, I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel. I would say since college, it was always something that like interested me, and I was like, well, what would I even talk about? Like, I really would have had no YouTube channel other than like daily. Well, a lot of people have it, but I don't think I would have like had any kind of success at it,
Sure.
And
but being in creative advertising, you're probably like, that's exactly what I want to be doing.
Yeah, man. It's just it was always a desire, but I didn't have the gimmick or not the niche or the content or the topic, whatever. And when I started doing the DIY stuff in Kansas City, a lot of people were like, oh my God, yeah, you should do this. And I was just like, I've kind of just always felt like I've been out of time. It's just like I think it's just, I'm ADHD. So I'm just always like mentally spread thin because I'm just always thinking of everything and working on a little bit of everything instead of like one thing. So I was really just trying to like make an extra $400 a month making furniture. And so the thought of like recording that was crazy to me. And so in LA, when I was working at my last agency, I went and I sat down with a couple friends before we broke for the holiday, December 23rd. And, we were all sitting around talking about YouTube, and I was like, well, I've always wanted to start. They said something about YouTubers make so much money or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I always wanted to start a channel. I want to be this like kind of weird, quirky take on DIY And like at the same time, they were all like, dude, you've got to do that. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, yeah. And a week later, I shot my first video. And then a week later, I posted it. And it was January 7th, 2020, like right before the pandemic. And
wow,
that was very, very difficult for me, by the way, like to do that. And I quickly realized doing DIY is just, man, like my favorite guys on YouTube are Ben Ueda and Mike Montgomery from Homemade Builds and Homemade Modern. Like, and so those two guys, Homemade Modern and man,
Modern
you know
Builds?
what? It doesn't matter. Both Modern Builds. There we go. I guess I'm not that big of a fan. No, I'm just kidding. Those guys, like for me, really inspired me. Like I watching their channels, like in the past, 5 years, I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that, And so I was like pretty bummed because I knew I had this like tiny house short-term rental business. And I was like, yeah, I'm good at this and I could talk about this, but I don't want to talk about that. It's boring. Who wants to know about that? I want to do like DIY. I want to do like Homemade Modern kind of thing, right? And so I was really cranking on Homemade Modern for that style, like the DIY, and trying to be funny and trying to be me and stuff for 6 months, I was really cranking on that for a long time. And it just, it was hard. It was like, I'm so glad I don't do that niche. I've got way more respect for those guys now because like a 2-hour project now takes like 20 hours because you're like, I was shooting on an iPhone and it was just like not fun, And so basically, I guess to answer your question, and I know I recognize in retrospect, I could have answered this in probably 10 seconds or less, but here we are. We're on this journey together. It's not about the destination.
Podcast is long form, baby.
But like, I guess like, I am really glad that it unfolded exactly how it did. I'm glad I didn't start a channel in college because I probably would have like not succeeded. I probably would have quit. I didn't have anyone to look up to on YouTube at that time. So I would have never been able to learn how to become a YouTuber. And, and then, I couldn't have started a channel about Airbnb and tiny houses if I hadn't done it before. So truly, I am the result of absolute pure luck and hard work. I put in a lot of work to create my business. I created this channel. One of my videos about tiny houses went viral, like one of the first videos that I ever made after, like I had actually bought a nice camera and I was like trying to make good content. My really crappy video took off and that was the beginning of it all. And I was like a little bummed. I was like, man, I don't want to be the tiny house guy. Like, it's like boring. Everyone like that's just like a boring niche for me, like I thought. I honestly didn't really like look that hard into it. And then I guess I just had this like thought where I was like, well, I got to make this niche what I want it to be. I got to make it what I want to be. And I got to make it fun. And people want to hear what I have to say about, Airbnb and tiny houses and stuff. And I was like, so I should give this a shot. And I went all in and I'm so glad I did. Like I was just in my head about it and I was like, it was dumb, but I'm really glad that I like had these epiphanies to myself. So, it worked out. It all happened, during the pandemic, which was like a really tough time for a lot of people. But for me, I think I was kind of starting to like understand myself as an entrepreneur, as a business person. And I wanted to show people how to achieve what I achieved because for the first time I was like, yeah, I'm not paying student loans anymore. I'm not paying a mortgage. And it came at a time where I think a lot of people were rethinking their priorities of like, do I want to work a 9-to-5? Do I want this Airbnb that can make me $1,000 to $2,000 a month? If I had 4 of those, I could quit my job. I could spend more time with my family. And I think that just resonated with a lot of people. And I think, like I said, I worked hard at it. It came at a time where the YouTube gods were like, yes, sir, we are promoting you. And yeah, man, I think if I had launched my channel 2 months or 3 months or 4 months earlier, or, it's just, I don't know. I don't think I'd be here. I wouldn't be talking on this podcast, I think.
Now, before we hear more of Rob's genius and empire, we just have to pause real quick for our first sponsor, Musicbed. This episode of Rally Caps is brought to you by Musicbed, our favorite source for music licensing. It's pretty surreal to partner with one of our favorite companies for Rally Caps. We've used their music for years and years on wedding films, on commercials, YouTube videos on my personal channel, and now we're even using their music for Rally Caps and Extra Innings on our Patreon. From the inception of an idea all the way to pressing publish, Musicbed plays an integral role in our entire creative process by providing amazing music to elevate all of our projects with.
One of our favorite parts of Musicbed is how easy it is to use. Even with over 900 leading composers, bands, and singer-songwriters, it's so simple to navigate the site and find the perfect song for your project. You can search with specific attributes in mind, like the tempo, style, or instrument used, or even search specific keywords like cinematic, folk, or dope podcast intro. Well, maybe not the last one, but you get the point. Sometimes we just listen to the music on Musicbed for fun because it's that good.
And if you're a music nerd, you can search songs by key and match songs across too if you'd like to mix and match. You can start a free account on Musicbed and browse all the same music we love to find what suits you best. When you're ready to start a subscription, use the code ALLCAPS at checkout to receive your first month free when you purchase an annual subscription. Start unlocking the full potential of your work.
Thanks again to Musicbed for sponsoring this episode of Rally Caps. Now, back to the show. So who are some of your maybe favorite YouTubers that you followed and kind of took notes on and sourced inspiration from as you were deciding to build out like a set for yourself, a whole look for your channel?
I guess outside of the DIY people too, because
Right.
I am interested in hearing like what other YouTubers inspire you outside of that too.
For sure, man. Well, obviously, like when I was first starting YouTube, it was YouTube Boot Camp, right? So a lot of Casey Neistat.
Oh yeah.
And then a lot of Think Media,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Catherine Manning.
Oh yeah.
And then Channel Makers was like another one. So like
Cool.
those were really the start of it. That's like me just, all I consumed was that. And then I consumed a lot of like Potato Jet and a lot of Daniel Schiffer.
Nice.
And
Okay.
Peter McKinnon, and there's one more guy that I'm forgetting that I really like. Maybe he'll come up later. But I was watching that. So that first 6 months of YouTube, it was like a masterclass on YouTube, right? That's all I consumed.
Yeah.
Then I started getting into like editorial stuff and like storytelling and all that kind of stuff. And so I was really becoming a fan of like Shelby Church, Monica Church.
Mm-hmm.
I really love their editing style. I think it's really fun.
Yeah.
Graham Stephan, of course, as I was like starting to step into more the financial niche and everything like that. Meet Kevin at that time as well. Like I was like consuming as much financial real estate as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm out of like learning, and so I always say like when you're starting a channel, you want to emulate the greats. And so, take from the people you love, right? And so first stage is learn it. Next stage is, casually steal and put your own spin on it.
Uh-huh.
And then now I just like YouTube is all like, it's like pure enjoyment for me now. And so now I watch a lot of, I don't know, can we just, I'm going to pull it up really fast because I do watch a lot of different people. I like Captain Sinbad. I just connected with him not too long ago. Love his channel. Funny enough, I just started. Julie Nolke, like, big fan of that. Spencer Cornelia is one that I've really been watching a lot lately. I know it's like I'm like late to the game here, but I just started watching like Cody Co.
Yes.
On YouTube too,
Yeah.
and like that is like the greatest. Like you could just watch any episode, like any YouTube video of him, and I'm just like I will watch that all night, and I had to because for the past 2 or 3 months, I have been up at like 2 and 6 in the morning,
It's freaking crazy.
burping my kid. My wife will feed him, and then I will burp him, and so like I have to stay awake when I have a child in my hand, and so like Cody Co's like I would watch a lot of that. But it's so weird. My actual like homepage on YouTube is like so many new faces that I don't really recognize as much. But yeah, Colin and Samir are obviously like a really, really great one too, from a creator economy standpoint. Matt Davella, Ali Abdal, Peter McKinnon.
Just all the people we're trying to get on our podcast, basically. We just recorded a pitch for Colin and Samir like a couple days ago that we're stoked on. Tell them about how Noel like ended up in your DMs.
Wait, Noel Miller?
Oh man, yeah. I guess speaking of Cody, I got a message from Noel Miller, who's also like the name of my wife's cousin. So I was like, this isn't my wife's cousin. And I was like, the Noel Miller, and he was like, oh, I can't. Yeah, he just reached out, and I was like, I watch your shit, bro. No, I didn't say that. I was just like, oh yeah, I've heard of you. Yeah. So it's really funny, man. It's just weird the amount of YouTubers that I've met a few of like
tell the odd story.
YouTube.
Tell the odd story.
There's not much of a story there,
come
but
on.
yes, Oh my God. It's so embarrassing because I don't think they don't know this, but I went on this like, oh man, how do I even like,
Oh, Steven
I wanna
doesn't know
just-
these things yet.
I don't. I'm
Okay,
very
okay,
excited
okay.
to hear this.
It's not that like I got invited. I became friends with this YouTuber, and she's also an Instagrammer. Her name is Cassie DeBicall, and we were chatting about real estate a lot. And she was like, "Hey, I got this sponsorship with my friend Shelby, and yeah, we're gonna have like a day out on a yacht if you want to come hang out." And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know. Let me check my schedule. And I was like, yeah, I can do it. And so anyways, I was like getting ready to go. I don't have like really a diversified set of clothes. I just like, this is my shirt. This shirt right here, I have several of these in different colors. It's my YouTube uniform. I don't stray away from it. So I'm like, yeah, that honestly, yeah, that was one of the reasons. Cause I was like, that's smart. I'm going to start doing that. Great decision. Let's talk about that for a second. No, I'm just kidding. So anyways, so ADHD. So anyways, okay. So I'm like over here running around and I'm like getting dressed and I'm like putting on different clothes. And I'm like, babe, what do you wear on a yacht? And she's like, those pants are fine. And I'm like, are they wrinkly? Are they too wrinkly? No. So I'm getting ready, whatever. And so she's like, hey, yeah. So Cassie like sends me a text and she's like, hey, yeah. So it's gonna be like me, Shelby, and Graham, and then his girlfriend. And then I was like, Graham who? And then she was like, or no, she said, and it's gonna be Graham. And then I go, and then my wife's like, what? And I was like, it was like literally audible. And I was like, Graham Stephan is gonna be on the yacht. She was like, she doesn't like care as much as me about this stuff, right? So, but she knew that was like a cool thing for me because like I watch all of his videos, and so anyways, yeah. So I go on this yacht and I'm just like, okay, cool. I'm gonna, and like I talked about this like for so long with all of my best friends, and I was like, why am I being invited to this? Like who am I? I had like 25,000 subscribers. I had just this was like right after it became creator on the rise for YouTube for like a day. And so I was like, it was like a big month for me, but I was like, I'm a nobody. So this is odd to me. And so we're all just like unpacking like why. And they're like, well, do you think, is it like, they were all like, it must be like a YouTube cult or something, or like there must be some kind of cult that they're trying to enlist you in because you're right. You have no business on this. Oh my God. I've never talked about this. So anyways, okay. So I go on the boat. I show up and I'm like trying to play it cool. And so, like Graham and like Shelby like come up and they're like, hey, how's it going? I'm Shelby. And I'm like, oh yeah. Shelby, last church? Yeah. I think I've seen a video or two. Graham? Never heard of you. And so I'm like and they were the same. Well, they probably actually didn't know me except, so I'm like trying to hang out. I'm like conversing with Graham and I'm like, yeah, man. So we're like talking about real estate. He's like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I've got this channel. And he's like, oh, cool, man. And so we're like talking and then like, I would find myself like finishing sentences for him. Like we were talking about editing and I was like, oh yeah, I've hired an editor. Obviously you've got an editor. And then I was like, if you had a channel, you probably do, which you don't, because I don't know who you are, man. I've never seen you before in my life. So anyways, like I was playing that game like all night, right, with everyone on the yacht. And so yeah, the same thing with like Shelby. We were like chatting later, and then she was like, because she was like, yeah, Rob, cool. And I was like, yeah, Shelby, never heard of you. You don't look familiar to me. And like we all went out to dinner afterwards, and she was like, yeah, your tiny house video really blew up like when it came out. And I was like, so you have seen my videos. And yeah, and now we're, yeah. So anyways, that was that story. So
oh my gosh.
I think we're friends now, but,
I think we're friends now.
I like you in the YouTube way, right? Like I wouldn't text her, but I would say like, yeah,
for sure.
I know I've met them. I guess. So anyways, I hope to God that they never hear this. But in a sense, I kind of hope they do. That would be great. That would be great for y'all, because that means that they're listening to the podcast and maybe they'll come on. This is my request for Graham, Stefan, and Shelby Church. Come on to the podcast, guys.
Thanks.
And ladies. It'd be really great. This is a great it's a good time. I hope this is so not super far from what y'all had originally intended.
I love that in that story you just say like normal phrases like, yeah, and then like, we were just talking on the yacht. You just kept being like, on the yacht.
I word that story like differently to like everybody. If I ever tell it, I word it differently because like I'm always like, all right, because that whole story, I mean, we've been talking about that for 50 minutes now, and I'm just like, all right. So I try to like cut that down as like short as possible so that people aren't like, what do you mean a yacht? So I'm just always like, oh, one time I met Shelby and Graham, Stefan or whatever, and I just like keep it at that. But anyways,
it's so much more enjoyable like coming from the creative perspective of people who actually know who they are.
I like that you started that by saying, oh, it's barely a story. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, it's funny to me. And so, so that's to me that was a really cool time for me, And then I came home and my wife and my friends and everything, they were like, so how much is the Colt or whatever? And I was like, no. They actually just wanted to hang out, and so that was fun to me. And they were all like, again, I was like, this is the thing with YouTube is like, you have imposter syndrome as a YouTuber at all times, like, and I was on that yacht and I was like, why am I here kind of thing? And everyone on there was like super big, right? And there's this one girl, her name is Tara Michelle. She's got a great channel too, and I didn't know who she was. So I was genuinely like, oh yeah, I don't know. This is a relief, and and so anyways, at the end I was like, yeah, so what do you do? And she's like, I'm a YouTuber. And I'm like, duh. And yeah, she's got like a huge channel, like every channel she's on is huge. And I was just like, everyone I was on the boat with had like, just like very loyal, like followings and big, and I was just like over 1 million. I'm like, why am I here? But that's it's cool. It's cool. This is like talking about this to me is like, I always forget. I have to remind myself, like, literally, this is like a dream come true for me, like meeting people like this and connecting with people. And, there are other people that I've connected with that I've just been like, this is crazy. It's funny. I'll put it this way. I feel like, sorry, I'll let y'all talk, I promise, but this is
we
me
want
time.
You to keep talking.
I feel like I'm always like either a podcaster's like worst nightmare or biggest relief, because they're like, oh, we didn't have to probe at all. But like I had a consultation business for like a long time, and it was like I did it for like I guess 9 months to a year. I can't really remember, teaching people how to Airbnb and stuff. And it's funny because like a lot of people would be like, I would flip open the screen and be like, hi, how's it going? And then they're like, wow, it's you. Like, it's crazy to like talk to you. And I would like, be like, no, man, I'm a normal person, And it's funny because I've connected with YouTubers that I'm a fan with. And so when I talk to them, like on Zoom, like, for the first time, I'm always like, wow, it's crazy. You're here. Like, I'm like in the same exact position. So, so I'm still new to this, but it's been a blast being here, and I'm trying to be better about connecting with other YouTubers. I feel like I give myself the excuse that I live like in the middle of Tennessee and I shouldn't do that. But my therapist was like, why not? You should talk to other YouTubers. Like that's probably very therapeutic for you. And I was like, it is. Like, I talked to you, Eric. I talked to my buddy Corey from Mission Side Hustle, another channel that I love.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great dude, man, and I'd consider him a friend. And because I think him and I, like, it's so easy to relate to other people. And then when I talked to Nikhil, I was just like, same thing, and I'm like, oh, I need to be better at this. But I'm always scared to reach out to other YouTubers. I'm like, why would they ever, if they're anything like me when it comes to responding to their inbox, they'll never get back to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying, guys. I'm happy to be here, and I'm trying.
Well, Well, I commend you for it because I'm lazy with it too. And I realize how much I'm missing out from honestly just like relationship and just like getting to know people on a personal level. But just I've loved like being able to DM and text and just like send memes back and forth and that kind of stuff. It's just super fun. And it is true. Like when it becomes a significant part of your career, it's really hard to be able to relate to other people because it's just very few people kind of do it at the capacity we do. And so, yeah, it's just really nice to be able to relate to people and not just like, your mom who's like, what do you do again? Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And you like talk about it with your wife as much as you can.
Right.
But, well, they're not going to fully understand. They're going to try. But also, like, they're not going to geek out with you in the same way that you are with like someone else, right? And so it's a really, really great thing to connect with other YouTubers. When you reached out, I'm trying to remember the flow of things.
I commented on your video. Yeah.
You commented on my video, and I was like, oh, that's so funny. I guess he saw both of my comments on his video. All of the friends that I've made, by the way, on YouTube have been through comments. Like, just commenting on people's videos, like, surprisingly, that's the easiest way to connect with other YouTubers. Mm-hmm. But you commented, I was like, oh, you must have seen the other things. And then I think when we chatted, I was like, yeah, so you saw my comments on your video. And then you're like, no. And I was like, oh, that's a good coincidence. That's funny. It was your every filmmaker,
every YouTuber,
2020 or every YouTuber. Yeah, and I commented, I was like, this is so good. And then I think like a month later, I had watched it like 3 more times, and I was like, hey, by the way, I've watched this several times, and this is like the best video ever, or whatever.
No response, just nothing.
Yeah,
ghosted. So I unsubscribed.
Yeah,
but I've resubscribed since.
Okay, good. I could go on for days. I want to pivot back a bit into the Airbnb stuff, and just kind of as we're starting to get the idea of maybe this being a part of our future and part of our business or whatever we're thinking as far as short-term rental properties. What are your thoughts on down payments? Like, do they need to be cash? This is like the hardest pivot ever. I'm realizing. I'm just like, let's completely change the conversation.
Hey, I want you to know that was seamless. Okay, yeah, let's talk about it. I want to talk about that with you.
This is I tell this to everyone. I'm like, okay, so this is where it turns into a consultation.
You could have just asked, Eric. We text every day, man. You could have just texted me. Okay, cool. All right, let's talk about it. Let's give some value to the audience.
Yeah.
Which if you're listening, by the way, do me a favor. After you're done listening, go to the Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave these guys a review because they are bringing the fire content
What
today.
A champ, this guy.
Okay, so if you want to get into Airbnb and you want to buy a house, there are a few different options that you can take. So there are primary residences, which is an FHA, and that is a 3.5% down payment. Now, the problem with FHA is it has to be your primary house, and you have to live in it full time. Mm-hmm. But after a year, you can then convert that into a rental. Mm-hmm. And so if you own a house and you're looking to get into a house, like a new house, you can convert your FHA house into an Airbnb. You can also try the house hacking method, which house hacking is basically when you rent out a room or a bonus space in your house or a tiny house in your backyard or studio space underneath. And you use that to subsidize your mortgage. And so basically, let's say you have like a $1,000 mortgage in some small town where mortgages are that much. And you rent out a room for $400 a month. That means that you're now going to pay $600 to live there because you're renting it to a roommate for $400. That's house hacking. Mm-hmm. You can supercharge that concept of house hacking by Airbnb. So instead of charging someone long-term, you can charge someone $100 a night for 10 nights. And that's $1,000 that you could make on one room in your house if you just were to Airbnb a part of it. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to share a space with people, pandemic, strangers, murdering me at night, all that kind of, yeah, I get it. Been there, done that, the murdering part. And so, so in that regard, you might consider like a duplex and, you know, you live in one side and then you could Airbnb the other side. Now, there are some nuances here that you'd want to work out with your mortgage broker to make sure that it's allowable. The FHA guidelines are changing every day. So maybe you have to wait a year before you can Airbnb it, but that could be an option. So that's 3.5%. Next would be a conventional loan, and that could be like a 5% down, and that you aren't necessarily bound. Let me just say, I'm not a mortgage broker, and don't you dare sue me if you're listening to this. And so talk to a mortgage broker. But an FHA, a conventional, you don't have to like adhere to the same type of guidelines. And so there's a little bit more flexibility. So a house hack would be a little bit more of a feasible option for you in that regard. But really the more popular loan options for people that are looking to get into Airbnbs are second homes and investment properties. So a second home is also called a vacation home. And this is a house that you like can go and vacation to and enjoy part-time. And theoretically, like you like, it's like your getaway spot, right? And so the cool thing with the second home is you don't actually need a first home to get a second home loan. I know it's like kind of confusing. You could theoretically be renting an apartment or a house and still get a second home loan if you wanted to. Okay. Now there are some, you again, talk to your mortgage broker about this, but there are definitely some lines and guidelines that you'd want to adhere to, because the Fannie Mae guidelines for a second home specify that you have to occupy the property for a portion of the year. There's not an exact date to that, but most brokers will tell you like 2 to 3 weeks out of the year. So if you're looking at buying a vacation home, like for you live in Chicago. If you want to get a like where I just went in Wisconsin or Madison or Milwaukee, you're like, I want to be on the outskirts here, and you wanted to get a second home. You've been thinking about doing that, but you can't really justify the expense of buying a second home that you're going to be in for 4 weeks out of the year. Well, you could buy a second home, and you are allowed to rent that as on a short-term rental basis. And a lot of people do that. And not only do they get to subsidize their mortgage, but they actually get to make money doing it too. Yeah. So that's always like an option for people. And then the last one is going to be just a straight up investment loan. And that could be anywhere from a 15 to 25% down payment. And that's where it starts getting very, very difficult. Yeah. It's doubles how much you actually need. So you've got options no matter where you are in your journey, but check with your mortgage broker to make sure that you're allowed to do it in your area and you're conforming to all the guidelines and everything like that.
The more and more I listen to your channel, the more and more I'm realizing is we left our loft condo last year. We now have a long-term rental in there, and we have a house out in the suburbs, and we renovated that place. And so it's like really swanky, and we felt like we even undercharged on the monthly rental for that long-term renter. And I'm just looking at it, I'm going, the amount of equity, we probably have 35, upwards of 40% equity in the property now. And I'm going, would it be better I've always banked on, this is appreciating value. The neighborhood's awesome. Like, it's growing, all this stuff. And I'm like, is that really the best bang for our buck? Because we could sell this place and I could have a 15 to 20% down payment on like 2 properties somewhere else and being in cash flowing it on Airbnb and making so much more money. And the hesitation was always like, don't sell the property because it's, you want to get the appreciation of value. But it's just like the Airbnb, if it cash flows, so the kind of numbers that you say with your properties, I'm like, it's a no brainer. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It usually is. I mean, it really is. And I would say for you in that scenario, what would make more sense to me, you have 2 different options. You could just convert it to a long-term rental. Or you could just do a cash out refi.
Right, that's what I was going to ask, yeah.
Yeah, cash out refi allows you to get 75%. Well, really up to 90%. It depends on your lender, but you could get feasibly up to 90% of the equity that you have in a house. So if you have $200,000 of equity in that condo, you could feasibly get up to $180,000. Yeah. Back. But now your new loan on that condo is going to be $180,000 more because you're pulling it out or whatever. But so long as you're cash flowing on the Airbnb side of things,
no problem.
Awesome. Yep. And then you've got this 180 that if you were to even just do it as a 20% down payment, that $180,000 could buy you up to like $800,000 of houses, which could be 2, maybe even 3, depending on your strategy.
Right, you're just like dispersing the equity and then cash flowing all those properties.
Exactly. And you do that a few times and, like that's a real business for you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the difference between cash out refi and a home equity line of credit?
Yeah. So a cash out refi, for example, would be you are taking that out and you're adding it to like your debt on that house already. So and then you're amortizing it over 30 years. So your actual payment isn't going to change like significantly. Like let's say you have $100,000 house and I want to boil this down simply. Let's just say that you have a house, you take out a home equity line of credit, you're going to just do a whole new loan and you're going to amortize that over 30% at a pretty low interest rate. Right now interest rates are like 2.5 to 3.5%.
Yeah.
But on a home equity line of credit, you're keeping your existing debt on that house, that loan that you originally got stays intact, and then you're getting a whole nother loan. It's like a line of credit. So you'll have, like if you have $200,000 of approved equity, you'll get that as a credit line, and it's amortized a lot differently. Like mine is 10 years, and it's basically like a loan that you can choose as much or as little as you want. So you don't necessarily have to take all $200,000 out if you don't want to. You could spend $20,000 to remodel your kitchen, and you're only going to pay interest on that $20,000, but not on that, $180,000 that you have left over. And so it's like a credit card. So what you use, you'll pay interest on, and then you can kind of keep it tucked away for a rainy day. So I have a $120,000 line of credit on my LA house. I like to just have that. I could go and use that tomorrow to buy some cheap flip it, pay it all with my HELOC, and then once I sell that house, pay the HELOC off and start over if I wanted to.
Epic, yeah.
And Rob, real quick, can you define what a HELOC is for me?
Home equity line of credit, HELOC. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Okay, cool. I was like, that's an awesome sounding
That's
word.
true.
Have no idea what that
Sorry.
means.
Yeah. That was in my original
that is what the
question.
Rally Caps podcast is all about. Awesome sounding words.
Yeah, baby.
I gotta say, I was watching your most recent videos, maybe like an hour before we started recording. So I was like,
Nice.
Rob and I haven't really chatted that much. I kind of want to get a feel for what he does. I think the most recent video that you posted was about loans, and you recorded that video in the room that we're talking to you in right now.
So
and
he's having the
you
YouTuber
basically
moment.
said like every single thing in that video, almost word for word. I'm like, man, he nailed it. Like that's so, like he delivered it live just as good as he did in the video too. I'm like, that's amazing.
It's he locked in his head.
Yeah. Stop.
It's dome rocked. That's a new term I heard about recently. Dome rocking. Have you heard that?
No.
I'm still learning what it means.
hope
It
it's
basically
something.
means
I'm
when
like
you
borderline uncomfortable with it.
Okay, I think it's whenever. Well, okay, I've heard it a couple ways. Dome rock is when you say something and you blow their mind is like a dome rock. But I think the actual use of it is when you say something that really sticks with somebody in a bad way. Like if you're like,
Okay.
hey man, I really like what you're doing with the scraggly beard, then like all day you'd be like, I thought my beard was good. Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, wrong use of that term, but I'm glad that you like the videos.
Yeah, I do. I'm loving them. One of I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, you also posted a video about how you're projected to make $1 million in 2021, which is an incredible accomplishment for one. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It's unbelievable. In that video, you're kind of almost working through like the thought process of that on the spot, kind of just like appreciating what it meant, how that's been a goal of yours, and how it's actually going to happen this year and come to fruition. Now that you've had a little bit more time to let that like sink in a little bit more, do you have any more thoughts you wanted to expand on from that video, or like anything else that's kind of just come up as you've been able to sit in it and accept that as like your reality for this year?
Yeah, man. Sure. That's a good one. First of all, let me ask something. Do you have a YouTube channel? I probably should have done some research before this.
I do, and it has 300 subscribers.
Hey, that's okay. That is totally
Yeah, no,
fine, man.
I do.
I'm going to sub right after this.
Wow, that's very kind of you.
Okay. Well, you know what? I don't feel that bad because you did just say that you watched my videos an hour before this.
Yeah, don't feel bad at
we're
all.
like, we're pretty close.
We're new, fast friends is what's happening right now.
Yeah, exactly. Fast friends. That's great. Okay, so let's talk about that video. All right, so that video is very, very funny to me. Okay, I had so the video like you're talking about. I'm talking about how I'm making $1 million and I'm not happier as a result, but I am happy. But it's not like I'm making all this money and I'm like, oh yeah, finally I did it, because I've already, I've been working towards this for a while, and I was already making enough money with my wife to buy, sushi and like shrimp at the store and, like a nice toaster oven and that kind of stuff. Like these are the small things in life for us. Right. So, but these are things that like, all right, let's talk about that for a second. I have always bought shitty toaster ovens like my whole life. And so like the $10 one that like burns your toast every single time.
Oh, it's terrible.
And so when we moved to Gatlinburg, I was like, we are going to buy the nicest toaster oven money can buy. And we spent like $200 on a toaster oven. And honestly, it was worth it. And I don't regret it. And I'm unapologetic about it. But anyways, so that's where we're at with that. So anyways, we make enough money now to where we can afford those simplicities and those things. And so making more money hasn't really changed much. I have more money, and so obviously I'm more secure and I'm happier about being more secure, and also recognize highly privileged to make this amount of money. So very real conversations with myself and reflections. So I'm like kind of reflecting on that in this video and talking about like, like Graham Steffens and Ryan Pinedas and Meet Kevins and Andre Jicks. Like those guys talk about money and they're like total pros and they have a lot of it. And I'm like, I was hoping that I would be like as, eloquent about this kind of thing and like, smart and educated on it, but I'm really just figuring it out. That's like the premise of this video. But and I'm like, I'm happy in this, hey, I just want you to know I'm not happier because of the money, but I am happy, However, if you watch the video, I do look a little like bummed out and somber in it a little bit. And so I had to put an insert in there, and I was like, hey, by the way, I know that I just said I'm happy and I looked really, really not in the video. I am. I recorded this video at 2 a.m. And so that
was my favorite part of the video, by the way. It was great.
And I had a couple friends reach out and they're like, hey man, if you ever need to talk, I'm here for you. And I genuinely appreciated it. And I was like, guys, I'm fine. Like I really am. I can't. I just record at 3 a.m. and it's like really hard for me, Yeah. And so that kind of was like a little bit of a wake up call for me to start recording at like noon on Monday. So I've kind of set the priority moving forward. I will always record during the day because I always do look a little bummed out sometimes at night, but I still cancel it out with like some quirkiness here and there. So I recently actually, like after I talked to Eric for a bit, I was like kind of thinking about going to therapy and stuff, and a bunch of YouTubers like were recommending BetterHelp, and I'm like easily influenced. I was like, well, okay, that sounds great. And I've been doing that. And so like I was like talking to my therapist, and because I'm busy and it's not sustainable. And so I was like, I just want to preemptively get into therapy and like, I don't know, talk. I hear it's cool. I hear it makes you happier. And so I started doing that, and like, so I talked about that in the video too. And, which it's like, it sounds like a little bit of BS to some people, I think too, to be like, well, I went to therapy for no reason. But I honestly, like, it really is what it was. And I went to my therapist and I was like, yeah, all right. So I heard this is supposed to be a good thing. And she's like, is there anything that you're struggling with? And I was like, no, I think I'm happy. And then she was like, no one ever does that. That's weird. And so I like have been doing this for a couple weeks, and I talked to her about this video, and I was like, told her, it's so funny. I like told them all the things I'm telling you, and I'm like, and people reached out and they're like, are you okay? And then she started really just peeling the layers back and the onions back, and she was like, well, do you think they were seeing something in you that maybe you don't see? And I was like, I don't think so. She's like, are you sure you're okay? And I was like, I think so. And I really don't know. Like, it's been like really just an interesting journey for me, because like last week she's like, I don't know. Are you sure you're not protecting yourself? And like, what are you? She's like, I have to ask this, but what aren't you telling me? And I was like, I thought it was fine, but you're in my head now, And so, yeah, like that's what therapy has been like. But I think it's good. I think it's really good to question what you tell yourself and what you tell yourself that you're feeling and stuff. Like, cause I'm like, I genuinely do think happy, optimistic, and positive, but I'm highly stressed and highly busy and like spread thin. And I recognize that. And I've got like way more gray hairs than I did like 2 months ago. So, you know, yes, I'm happy, but that doesn't mean I can't fix things. And so, I've been working through that because I've been like talking to my therapist about, I was like, I just don't know what my what my relationship is with money now. And like, I thought it was going to be, this monumental like thing for me, and it's not. And I was like kind of surprised by that. So do I have more to talk about it? I think I'm constantly evolving, and my big mindset shift that I've really discovered, which I would have talked about in this video, but I was like, well, I'll just leave that for another one because I need the content. But like time is like crazy valuable to me now in a way that I never imagined. And so that's kind of why I quit my consultation business, or why I shut it down. It was really successful and I was booked a month in advance and it was going really, really, really great. But, you know, I just was booked at all times, like on the computer, answering the same thing over and over again. And I just didn't feel like it was using my time super, super well. And so what I've been working on in my journey is like cutting out things in my life that don't need to be there and organizing myself in ways that I've never organized before and having a schedule, because I left this 9-to-5 job thinking I'd have more time for my family. It's actually not true at all, because I've completely gone the opposite direction as an entrepreneur and living that stereotypical like work 80 hours to avoid working 40 kind of thing. That's been me. And so I've really been just wrestling with like, okay, now that money's not as important to me, thank goodness, what can I do that's going to make me happier? And so I've been talking with my wife about it and saying like, okay, let's have a schedule. Me working 15-minute chunks all day in the living room with everybody in the room, it's not efficient, and I'm going to bed at 3, and that's not good for me, and it's not going to be good for the kids and not good for you because I'm not actually ever here. So I've really been working on just being organized and efficient and like having a to-do list. And so Ali Abdal and Nikhil Captain Sinbad, like those and Matt Davala, like those types of channels, I've been consuming them like crazy because I'm like, I need to be productive in a good way. And so I've been really just working on like taking money out of things and prioritizing time over that. And so, you know, I'm still really figuring that out. Like I have a lot of things that I'm starting to do to like work on that. And like, for example, I'm trying to like keep my desk clean, which is a very difficult thing for me to do. I just bought this like water bottle.
There we go.
To remind myself to drink. I don't drink water at all. Like if it were up to me, I would drink like sparkling water all day. But if I don't have that, then I'm like, I don't want it. And so, yeah, I bought that, and now I drink like a lot of water every day. And now we're on a diet, and now I've got like a routine every day, like from 11 to 5 with like a 15-minute break to go put my daughter down for a nap. That's my work schedule. I'm turning off at 5. No one's going to talk to me about work anymore after that. I am going to record YouTube videos at 12 o'clock every single Monday without fail, no exception. And so genuinely, I'm like, okay, I should have done this a long time ago. And all of this epiphany and me trying to figure this out was also during the newborn stage of my son being born, which I wish was more fun for me, but it was really hard for me and my wife, because like when you have your first kid, it's like the honeymoon stage and you love everything and you're learning everything and it's like, it's all cute and great. But when you have your second one, everyone says this is the big change. It's like you're having to focus on your first one, making sure that they're not feeling jealous and they're starting to throw tantrums because they're jealous. And then this one's like crying and we've got to tend to this one. I'm waking up several times a night and I'm not getting a good night's rest. And I'm working 80 hours a week, and then I want to help my wife and I feel guilt. So it's like this whole past 2 months have been not a good thing for me in terms of like spread thinness, which is a real term. And now that we're through it, and now my son is like, you know, we've calibrated to this life and things are finally going good. I'm organized and I'm like, oh my goodness, the reason I was in this funk, like that the past 2 months, I was like, why? I was like, I feel happy, but why do I still feel like I'm in a funk? And then I was like, oh, I wasn't sleeping at night. Duh. And so now that I'm like sleeping through the night again, I'm like, and I'm organized. I'm like, man, it feels good to be here.
Yeah.
Changes everything. I'm in the process of that reckoning right now too. And him moving here is going to be a huge help because he is very similar to what you have been going through with watching Ali Abdal and the organization and schedules and all that. So I'm excited to just like take a full-on course from Steven and help with that in my life. I'm launching a course in October. I know you're launching your course at the end of the month. Similar to kind of what you were talking about. It's like, what's worth my time? Consultation and workshops sort of stuff? Or is it like building this asset that could be sold to virtually anybody, you know? But yeah.
And it's better. That's the thing.
Right.
It's so much better. Like the course, like they get 8 hours of me instead of like 1 hour that's like in and out and not really getting to answer all of their questions, you know? And so I'm happy that you've gotten, and did you just hire an editor too?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Braxton. Yeah.
Good.
Oh,
Good.
yeah.
Congratulations. I also hired my editor full-time, and I hired an assistant full-time too. And again, those were like not cheap decisions to make, but I'm happier because I'm like, all right, convenience is happiness. I think that's what I figured out as an adult.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't want to keep you too long, but we do also want to plug your course for anybody that's listening or interested. Do you want to just give a quick elevator pitch on that?
Yeah, sure. So I am launching the Robuilt Host Camp, which is a 6-week all-intensive Airbnb program. If you want to learn how to start an Airbnb business from the ground up and learn everything there is to know from comping different markets, what type of units you can Airbnb, what your returns are going to be, how to furnish it, how to respond to people, what happens when your A-frame burns down, what happens when one of your Airbnb guests pass out in the back of an Uber and you have to carry them up to your house, those types of scenarios. It's like, you know, it's a live experience. Every single week, I'm going to be doing a live coaching call. And when I'm not doing a live coaching call, I'm going to have industry experts coming in to speak about things that they specialize in. Like, I know a guy that has 1,000 apartments. I'm going to try to have him on and talk about how he was able to scale up to that. Because, you know, like people that I look up to, basically. And so, yeah, I think for me, I have been recording this for like months, like from like midnight to 3. It's like 80 videos. And it should be about 6 to 8 hours. And then with all the live content, it's going to be about 14, 15 hours total. And I genuinely believe that if you're serious about starting an Airbnb business and that's something you want to do, if you take the program, then at the end of it, I think you're going to know how to, I don't think there will be any question marks really. That's it.
Awesome.
No place to buy. Oh, I guess at robuilthostcamp.com. That's ROBUILT.
And that will also be linked in the description as well. It launches August 30th, right?
Yes, let me look at my calendar. I'm pretty sure. I guess I should know that. It's like I'm trying to avoid not thinking about it because it's going to be crazy. The mental toll of a launch is, I've done it one time and it's hard. Yeah. August 30th.
Beautiful.
And it's only going to be open enrollment for 1 week. So on, dang it, I should have just kept it open. On September 6th, enrollment closes, and that will be the first cohort. We call them the founding members. These will be people that actually get to be a part of the live experience, and they'll get to shape that program for every other cohort and student class moving forward, which I'm not even sure when that will be. I'm just focusing on the first one. Glamp Camp was my first program. That was a glamping-based program. That was about 4 months ago, and that one, you know, I'm probably not going to open that one up for another 6 to 8 months. So I'm focusing on this Airbnb intensive for now, and I'm excited about it. It's going to be cool.
Epic. Okay. Last part is what we call batting practice. So we just ask you questions really fast, and you have to answer them really fast. If you don't answer them fast enough, we will move to the next one.
All right, let's go.
Favorite running shoe brand?
Adidas.
How many Airbnb properties do you have?
14.
Graham Stephan or Andre Jick?
Graham Stephan.
Why?
I just like his content
Or
more.
hot dogs?
I think I like his style.
Sandwiches?
Yeah.
Do you cut your own hair?
My wife does.
Glamping or normal camping?
Glamping.
Why?
Because I don't like to poop in the ground.
What hair product do you use?
Like a nice fiber wax.
Favorite song from Inside by Bo Burnham?
Comedy.
Favorite seafood?
Sorry. What did you ask, Garrett?
Favorite seafood. Favorite
All right,
seafood.
one more time. Oh, scallop.
Oh.
Scallop. For the love of God, scallop. Can you hear me? Internet, help me. If you can hear me, I'm already dead.
Where do you buy your socks?
Bombas.
Iced or hot coffee?
Hot coffee.
Iced or hot preparation H?
Iced, obviously.
Best indie band?
John Mayer. Not really. I don't know.
Tennessee or Siberia?
Tennessee.
Best cryptocurrency?
Bitcoin.
Have you ever farted and it was definitely more than a fart?
Yeah, several times.
Oh yeah.
Perfect. I think that's a perfect 14 out of 14. However many questions and however many internet connection drops we had. That was perfect.
Well, yeah, we got.
Wait, is this still going on? Is the podcast still going on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I'll just turn off my camera now. All right, fantastic, beautiful.
Well, we just wanted to publicly on the podcast thank you. You just like shared so freaking much. It felt like a workshop from you in this episode, and I'm sure lots of people will be very stoked to hear from you as well. I feel like there's at least in our world, not a lot of people know about you because they're not necessarily acquainted, but there's so many people in the creative photo film world that want to get into short-term rental for sure, and they love design and they love all that stuff. So I think it'll be really cool for them to hear from you, and we thank you and we love you a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on. Have me on again sometime. Don't feel like, don't feel like, hey, I know it's only been 2 weeks, but no, I'm just kidding. You can have me on anytime. I'm happy to do this.
It'd be amazing.
We're just hanging out.
We should
Let's do a happy hour version.
We hang
much better.
out like at your Wisconsin Airbnb or something.
That would be
epic.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Well, if you watch this video on YouTube, make sure to like it and subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell, all the YouTube things.
And if you're listening to this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite streaming platform of choice, please leave us a review as well. It really does help to push the show out to more and more people who can really benefit from it.
Robuilt, find them on YouTube, subscribe, like, algorithm.
Notification bell.
Occasional comment.
Oh.
Long and thoughtful. Long and thoughtful comment. I read every single one.
I love it. I love your responses to people's comments. They're just like, I learned so much from this. I just like love you. And you're like, this feels right. You always just, I'm like, I'm not sure about this relationship, but this feels right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or if it's like a really mean comment, I just heart them. Heart, love you, pal. It's okay. I'm sorry that you're mad.
Rob, thanks so much, man. We appreciate your time.
Happy to be here.